All right, Yaris lovers, this one's for you. This is a 2011 Yaris. My son's actually. It has somewhere in the suspension a creaking. You back out of the driveway all the time, right? So I had replaced. I think I've got a video up on it. I had replaced the struts and the strut mounts a while back, and that helped a lot. Didn't get it all. I replaced the sway bar bushings back there on both sides. Didn't really seem to do much. The originals looked like they're in pretty good shape. This car's got about 111,000 miles on it. What I wound up finding here was that this bushing right back here in the A-frame was the culprit, and I've almost got this out. I probably won't be able to hear it. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm going to replace it on both sides, but a couple things that I wanted to throw out there if you're going to do this. One, definitely have an impact. I've got the Milliwall K over there, which is the way to go. I also like DeWalt. What you're going to need to do is be prepared to do anything, I guess, that it takes. Just bite the bullet, take your tie rod out, rent or buy the tool that compresses it out from the top down. Don't use the pickle fork on this, or you'll ruin the rubber boot on it. Come on this side. You can see I've got the sway bar end link undone down here, and that was to get to this bolt right here that holds on that part of the A-frame. You got a bolt that goes up down here, and they're captured nuts. So once you get the bolts out that are a mile long, you don't have to worry about the nuts or anything like that. But this is the one that came out of this side, and I just pulled that one out on that side. Probably the same. It is. It is not. This one is the one that goes up here, the shorter one, and then your longer one goes in the back over here, and then you've got down here, you have got your ball joint. Hooray! Which, you pull your cotter key out of the ball joint. I think this is a 17 millimeter nut. It comes right off. The hard part is getting this to separate from the spindle back here. I'm sorry for the crappy camera work. I really am. Trying to get it out of the spindle, which is, it's right in front of it there. So this normally goes right up through the center of this. Maybe I'll edit this a bit and show you what it's supposed to look like at the end if you don't know. But anyway, I banged and banged and banged on it, and I even applied some heat to the spindle itself. But you can't get too crazy because you've got, plastic rubber boot right there for your CV. I beat and beat and beat on the thing, nothing. Finally just wound up going to O'Reilly's, was going to rent it. They didn't have it, so I just bought the old pickle fork here. And you slide that thing in between this and the knuckle, and you just hit the end of it with a hammer, and it popped right out. So that's that. So know that you're going to have that. But here's one other thing. So this bolt right here, as you saw, was fairly long, and it is long enough to where it will interfere with the oil pan. Okay, so you can see here I've got a jack up underneath the oil pan because this oil pan sits down just about level with this hole. And then the bolt comes out, taps on the end of it, and you're screwed. So the fix to that, get you a jack and a piece of wood under the oil pan, and then come up here and take out 1, 2, 3 bolts. And you can see this is how much it's jacked up off of the frame of the car, or the unibody of the car. But that will let this side, you can now jack this up enough to where you can clear that bolt. I have a feeling I'm going to run into the same problem on this side with the transmission oil pan over there. Again, maybe I'll update this. But if you're doing it, just be aware of basically those two things. Main things is you're going to have to undo this, jack up the engine, and then you're gonna have to have a pickle fork, unless you're gonna do CV axles at the same time, and you know, pull this nut off here. You got your CV axle, and then you can get to the top of that ball joint from above, and you could probably press it out or bang it out from the top, but I didn't want to take that CV axle out. I was going to, just finding the right sockets is kind of a challenge too. I think this is a 29 or 30 millimeter 12 point, which I don't have. So anyway, that's that on the passenger side. Good luck if you're doing that one. Here's a good sample of the creaking sound from this back bushing. If you're hearing that when you're backing up or going over bumps or whatever, that's probably where it's coming from. Or it could be your strut mount up top. Far easier to change and cheaper, but odds are you're going to wind up doing both to get rid of it. Okay, I've got the new arm in position. Down here, there is a little C channel on the top of this, which I can't show you, but trust me, it's there. Maybe you can't see it. So when you go to put this in, it's got to go in here and then slide back this way. You can't just go straight in with it. It's a slide towards the rear type of a setup. And then your one up here, you just kind of work your way back into that channel there. And now, when you move this, no more squeaking. So that's definitely, well, a source of the problem. Okay, now from here you can clearly see some of the wear that has happened on this old one. You see the cracks in there. It's really hard to flex this by hand, but if you can see that the cracks open up even more. Anyway, you see. Now, the new one, crackless. And crackless means creakless in this case. So there you just have an idea of what to look for on the old versus the new part. Alright, and here is the driver's side of my lovely Yaris, and of which this back bushing has the same affliction as the passenger side did. You know, they just wear out over time. There's a couple of tricks here on the driver's side that mirror the passenger side. So you can see here, I've got the bolt out, and you just barely can get it out past the transmission pan. Barely. If you go up under here and you take the bolt out, I'll show you in a second, out of the lower engine mount, and then jack up the transmission pan, jack up the transmission by the pan with a block of wood. Let me show you. Okay, so down here, about in the middle of the car, you can see the exhaust there. Here you have one of the engine mounts. Okay, you can see there it's all askew because I've got the jack and I've got pressure on the transmission pan here, because you've got to take that bolt out right there to get that thing to slide out of its home in there, that bushing and all that, so that you can get movement to get the transmission up and out of the way of that A-frame bolt right there in the kind of the center left. Well, no, center left. That's the secret there. This bolt here is the same bolt head as the rest. As the rest of them are for the A-frames. And again, I'm sorry about the shaky camera work. It's just kind of what it is when you're doing this by yourself. These are all 19 millimeters. There we go. These are all 19mm bolt heads. So that's definitely a trick there. And I'm sure this side over here is going to have the same little notched. I can show it to you. There you can almost kind of see the beginnings of that notch there, where the sleeve, the center bushing of that rubber bushing has to go through to get in. When I get that out, I'll show it a little better. Okay, now with it out, now you can clearly see what I have been talking about. It's got kind of like a C channel, so that's good to know, because if you're trying to go straight on from this side, like from the side of the car in, and you're not low enough, you didn't see it, you didn't know it was there, this thing is going to stymie your progress. You got to go in through the slot. So I figure it's worth sharing that if you do decide to try to go ahead and replace the ball joint, that there is a, I don't know, say like a hidden snap ring here. Let's see if I can get the camera to focus in on it. You've got to be able to pull off the rubber part first. And there you can kind of see, focus you thing. There. Now here you can kind of see, there's the end of it right there. And there's the other end of that ring. Okay, that ring has got to come off before you can press or hammer this, well, on mine, what's left of the ball joint, out of the A-frame. If you don't, you're not ever going to get that shell out of the A-arm, the control arm. Just know that's there, and all that is covered by the old grease seal here, which is held on with this little, just a strip of metal. It looks like a spring, but it's not really. So get all this out of the way, then that will be apparent. Then you can knock it out with a hammer or a press. And by the way, if you're wondering why I decided to rebuild the driver's side instead of just fully replace it like I did the passenger side, well, I was going to fully replace it. I ordered a brand new control arm with all the stuff for both sides from Rock Auto. Passenger side went in great. The driver's side, and this is the passenger side, but whatever. The driver's side, when I put the new arm in, the ball joint did not fully seat into the steering knuckle. Why? I don't know. It got about halfway into the knuckle, and then it just stopped. And I tightened it up as much as I could. Like, you could still see from my fingernail down, exposed ball joint when it was as tight as it could go. And I tried it several times, and I'm not new to this kind of stuff. I could tell something was wrong with that particular ball joint. I don't know if maybe they installed one that's supposed to go onto like a Corolla or something onto that arm. I don't know. But what I wound up doing was getting a hold of Rock Auto. I told them what was going on. They said, ship the control arm back, and they would give me store credit or a refund. So that's what I did. And that's why I decided to go ahead and just rebuild the control arm on the driver's side. Okay, been a few days now. I have had a chance to work on this a little more. This right here is the new bushing that I've got in the arm. This was somewhere around, I think, $18, $19 at O'Reilly's. Got it all nice and pressed in here. And I just pressed in the new ball joint. This was about $16, I think, something like that at O'Reilly's. The ball joint was Master Pro, and the bushing was Import Direct. Neither one are probably great brands, but inexpensive, and in the end a lot cheaper than replacing the entire A-arm. This bushing I left alone. You can buy it at O'Reilly's, but without this bushing in the car, I went ahead and just slid this control arm back up in here, and then just kind of moved it up and down with the bolt in there. There was no creaking, there's nothing, and the condition of the rubber on this is still really good. it's not cracked and beat up like like this stuff was here, where this was clearly in need of replacement, and it looks like it takes quite a beating. The other stuff didn't. So pressing the ball joint in is really easy. I just did it. I didn't film it because I really don't have any way to, but if you've got a press, your setup is going to be something like this, and I've got a set of big 3/4 sockets, so you're going to do this, and then I've got that 1/2-inch socket there, and see, I can't even show you how there was no way for me to film this, basically, but this is what you're going to do, and you're just going to pump the press down on it, and then bang, that comes right together. The bushing itself is the same idea, but it's quite a bit more difficult, just because it's bigger. You can't set the A-frame level on this. You got to have really big sockets. You got to go in slow to make sure that it's not getting cockeyed inside the A-arm. And what I did that I think helped out a lot, actually, was I took my old Schmidt gun here from the Hazard Fart and put it on the high setting, and I heated up this whole area around the bushing, and that seemed to help this thing go in a lot better. That way you're not having to use the torch and ruin the paint or take the risk of burning up the rubber inside your new bushing. You don't want that. So now I've got this back together. It's time to basically put it back in the car. Alright, she's all back together. Just took her for a test drive. It is flawless. Suspension is quiet as a mouse. That was definitely the thing to do. Like, if you have the time and if you've got a press, I would say just rebuild your control arms. You could do it for under $40 at O'Reilly's. Important to note is that if you decide to do this, O'Reilly's was the only place I could find that would sell you just the individual bushings and the ball joint instead of the whole control arm. For example, AutoZone wanted to sell me just the control arm, and so did the Toyota dealer. I even went there trying to get that ball joint. They told me to buy the whole arm, so whatever. I think you probably order the parts individually off the internet, Rock Auto or eBay or whatever, but O'Reilly's is faster, and if they're wrong, you take them back. So I hope that helped you. If you don't have a press, this one, if I didn't mention it, this one came from Northern Tool, Northern Hydraulic, Northern Equipment, whatever they're calling it now. Little 12-ton press, and I got it on a Black Friday deal. I think it was like $108 shipped to my door, and it's perfect for a job like that. And then it doesn't take up much space. I'm just gonna shove it over there against the wall, all my other stuff. But hopefully that helps you. If you have any questions, let me know.